to today's webinar. So today we're mainly going to go through the basics of some accounting items in Newbook. If it's okay, I hope everyone can see my screen. If not, I can zoom in slightly. But I've just logged into my database. So we have many different types of client accounts. The main ones that you probably would be aware of is our booking client accounts. We have group client accounts, company client accounts. So that's if you bill to a company, any bookings that you would like to bill to that one company, you can organize all your invoices and receipts in there. Travel agent client accounts, which is more so for commissions, or if a travel agent is paying you for bookings, that's where we would send charges for you to reconcile them. And we also have a cash account, which some of you may or may not use. The main ones that I will be focusing on today will be our booking, our group, and our cash accounts. So again, in the survey afterwards, if you would really like to dive into travel agent accounts, I know some people really would like to dive into that a little bit more, feel free to pop that suggestion in the survey afterwards. So I've got a few examples. Firstly, I would just like to show you a booking client account. So just double clicking on my booking here for Lola Bunny. I'm going to click in and scrolling down the bottom of the page. So she is on a quoted nightly rate here. So I can see quoted nights, and down the bottom here, this pinky purple line, this color basically highlights that for this booking, this is where all my charges are going. Down underneath, we have a guest client account for Lola Bunny, and all that tells me the guest client account is where we normally save a credit on file. So for example, if Lola Bunny cancelled a booking in the past, she would like to use that credit for a future date, but she doesn't know when. This is where we would recommend storing those credits, so you're not having cancelled, departed bookings with a credit balance. Over here, let's go ahead and we're going to look at our booking client account. So going through a client account, I'll just go through the basics. So over here where we have our subclient accounts, so this is where we can see a summary of credits or debts based on the subclient account of that charge. So this is useful if you have like long-term stayers and you want to be able to look at accommodation charges versus electricity and any meter readings. So with our sub client account section here, if I only wanted to focus on food and beverage on this account, you can actually click on our subclient account name. It highlights it in purple for me. And then down the bottom, I can see any charges that are associated with food and beverage specifically. You can untick it or simply select a different one, sorry. Coming to accommodation, this is limited to anything that is resulting in accommodation charges or payments. You can click back to all client account overall, and that will just show you the client account in its entirety. Over here on this section, so this is where you can get the overall balance of this entire client account. So right now it is 0. 0 here, or whatever figure would be here, should normally always match the bottom right-hand corner of your client account ledger table. And the way to read a client account would be to go line by line. We have an amount column here. So I'll just quickly go through the colors. So green is what we display as a payment or a credit, because when you receive like a cash payment, it is a credit value. Anything with a charge line, anything with charges will be in red, showing DR as a debt, because when we raise a charge, they owe us for that money. When we add a payment, it will then balance it out. So reading line by line, to read a client account here, we actually go left to right. So the amount would be the amount of that particular item. So my payment of cash is $5. And so it puts my client account in balance $5 at this point in time, if that makes sense. Then we add a charge of $5, so it then balances to zero. We add a credit, which puts the account in credit of 435. We add a charge of 145, which then deducts from the credit, more charge, less of a credit, and so on until we are balanced. I hope that makes sense. That's the best way that I can explain it there. So left to right, up, down is how we can gauge the calculations. Another thing you may have also seen on this client account is that we've got some of our payments and charges in green. What that means is our payment here is reconciling with the charges down here in the bottom. That is why along the lines with charges, we can see that they are paid in full. Up the top here, I have a cash payment in the white color, and I've also got this charge in the white color as well. So that is showing me that this payment, although they're sitting on the same client account, they're not reconciling. Therefore, they're not talking to each other. My payment is not paying off my charge for whatever reason. So what we can actually do is make this payment reconcile with this charge. It's important to make sure that you are reconciling, because if you have a cash payment here on your receipt, if it's not paying off a charge, your receipt will only show a credit value. So I think we get a couple of calls about this. So where they say, oh, why isn't my charge on here? This would be the reason, because there's the reconciliation isn't occurring. Also, GST lives in the charge itself. So if you see a receipt that has no GST or tax on there, it's probably because it's not reconciling with a charge. So I'll just go back to view the client account and I'll show you how easy it is to reconcile. What I'll do is I'll go into my payment by clicking on the payment ID. And actually here I can see a little preview of what is going on. My payment amount of $5 is here, and it's not applied to any items. So in order to apply, we would edit payment. And now we can go ahead and see in the apply to item section, here is a charge. So once we tick that, bright yellow color appears, where it's saying the total value of $5 for my payment is fully applying to the value of this charge. And it's as easy as selecting save. Now I have my payment and my charge in green. And if I click on the receipt over here, you will then be able to see that charge amount in my debit section here. So it's all balanced. And if my charge for milk had GST, it would be listed down here. Cool. So that is the basics of a booking client account. What I would like to show you now is our group bookings and go into a little bit more detail here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go into my booking, my group booking for Daffy Duck. So with our group booking, this is the group booking page. If I scroll down, I just want to point out a few things. So underneath, I've got all my bookings down below. And you might notice that I've got a group client account here. This is highlighted in the pinky purple color again. And where my booking lists are, where the default client account is, we can see that 3 of these bookings are billing to the group account. So that means that Daffy Duck, Pepe, and Bugs, all their booking values are coming into this group client account. With Sylvester the cat, though, because he is billing to his own booking, that is why we can see a debt balance on his booking line here. Something also to note, when you bill to the group client account, this is why we can see our payment button on the group page. Whereas if I went into Sylvester the cat's booking here, he specifically has a booking button here. And where the client accounts live, the booking client account for his booking is the one that is highlighted in the pinky purple line. And that is because for Sylvester the cat's booking, it is defaulting to his booking account, not the group. You can see the group account there just as an FYI. I hope that makes sense. Let's go ahead. We're going to go into the group and we're going to go to this group client account. So if you want to create invoices or see any of those charges for going to the group account or any receipts and things like that, you must go into the group or the client account itself. Now, this client account is set up a little bit differently. I wanted to show you the difference with invoices. So normally when you come to a client account, you would see if an invoice was created, you could see the invoice and the invoice ID here. If we click on it, it will bring you to the invoice and you can print that off and send that from here if you needed to. I'll just go backwards. What you'll also find is there's a drop down arrow, and when we select that, you will see all the charges with the black arrow pointing back up to the invoice, meaning that these charges only are within this particular invoice here. Now, this may have been for a few reasons. It could have been that when they first made a booking, they only had, maybe 2 nights worth of bookings and they've extended the booking. So now we've got more charges and they haven't gone into my invoice here. So the way to collect all of those charges and put it in the one invoice is as easy as clicking on the invoice itself. So similar to a payment, we have an edit invoice button. And when we scroll down, we'll be able to see those charges that are not ticked. These are the charges that weren't included in the invoice. So feel free to select, or we've got a bulk tick option here. So when we select that, it will bulk select all of these items and we can go ahead and select save. Our invoice will update automatically. So we have all the charges within here. If I go to view client account, this is where I can see now all of my charges are pointing up to my invoice. Therefore, they will be in here. And that way we can easily select. And with selected items, we've ticked the entire invoice, we can pay. That's the best way to reconcile a payment with an invoice or charges. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it's a funds transfer because maybe they paid me with a bank transfer. Here's my receipt and it's got all those charges there. If we go back to view client account, everything is green. So green is always good. Now that we can see our payment sitting here, it's got the time and date that we made the payment. And you can access your receipt from here as well. So the gray icons are clickable in order to view that particular document. I've actually got a setting that's activated on my client account. If we scroll down and go to advanced, there is the option to show expanded invoices. So if you always want to go into a particular client account and see all your invoices expanded like so, because most of the time they will default to hide your charges within. What we can do is go to our options at the top of the client account. Default and required fields. You can set this for yourself or everyone in your database. And if we scroll down, we just need to find the show expanded invoices setting, untick the default checkbox and leave it as yes. That way, when we save, every single time. It's remembering my my selection there, but every single time it should expand that for you. So you don't have to always keep clicking every invoice to open and see what's going on there. Right. Cool. So that was our group client accounts. I hope everything made sense. Feel free to pop in those questions in the chat box there. The next client account that I want to go through, which is a little bit different, and some of you may not use this, but we'll go for someone who has a long-term booking. So repeat billing is what we call that. So Elder Fudd here, I'm just going to go to his particular booking. And the first thing that you'll notice with repeat billing is that we don't have a payment button on the individual booking page. So long-term stays, repeat billing is essentially where we can create a charge, whether monthly or weekly, with a set value of that interval, and we will automatically raise a charge on a set date per month or per week. So where a lot of our clients will need to go if they use repeat billing is they can head to the client account, because this is where you would settle all those charges and view any details of the account. So the one thing that you'll probably notice with this is that it's very similar to a normal client account, but down the bottom here, I've got a section for my repeat billing cycle. So here it's raising a monthly rent charge. My next charge will generate on this date, which is the 1st of July, and the amount will be $800. Now, what we can actually do is, for example, if someone comes in early, rather than just leaving a payment, so we can add a payment onto the account, but rather than just leaving that payment until our charge rolls on the 1st of July, is we can actually click the generate repeat billing button here. So maybe he wants to pay for it next month up front. It will bring us to this window, and here we can preview that monthly charge. If he wanted to pay for 2 months, for example, we can extend our number of charges to 2, and it will show that breakdown here and the total value that he can pay right now. Because I know often they would like a receipt and they would like to see those charges within the receipt. Otherwise, it will look like a credit amount. So for this example, I will just leave it as 1 month charge that we're generating. We can click on the generate button, and then we've got, scrolling down, we can see that that charge has been raised for the month of July. Also, we will also match the true date that the charge should have been raised on. So it still shows on your reports as generating on the 1st of July. And it's as easy as selecting, and with selected items, we will pay. So maybe let's just use a funds transfer to make life easier. We'll hit save. Here's our payment. We can clearly see that charge in there because we've selected the charge to pay it, so it reconciles straight away. And if I go back to my client account, we can see all those charges there. Another cool tip with our client account settings, if we scroll down, there actually is the option in advanced to reverse order your client account. You can imagine you've got a lot of long-term bookings and they've stayed a few years. So rather than scrolling all the way down to the bottom of your client account to see the latest charge, we have a setting called reverse display order that when we select yes and reload, it will put the most recent charges and payments up the top. So instead of your balance showing down the bottom, everything is now floating upwards. So you would read the client account left to right, but going up. So hopefully that will be useful. And again, you can default that by using your options and your default and required field settings. There is also the option to send this statement to your guest, if they would like a full statement of everything on their account, we do have account options, print statement just here. And it's basically an overview of the client account, and they'll be able to see where they owe money, every single charge and payment that is on file. And again, that green color just displays that it is reconciling. You may just have to explain how to read it. So because we've reverse ordered it, it's just showing the most recent balance up top here for the entire account. Cool. Now, if I wanted to, we'll take a look at our cash account, because that is something that a few of you would be using. So the cash account here, just for those as an FYI, if you don't know, cash account is almost like a till. So if you have those little extra items, so maybe you sell washing powder or sunscreen or those little kiosk items that you might sell, you can use your cash account to add a charge and record payments so that you've got somewhere to basically bill and receipt those items, but maybe you don't want to necessarily keep having to go to that particular guest's booking client account to add those charges on, for example. So cash account, I will go through. Cash account is a little bit different to our booking and group client accounts. The main difference is that we actually will show the cash account on the day. So today is the 13th. When I log on, I'm only looking at today's cash account transactions. So highly recommend adding this to your end of day processes to check the cash account to make sure it is balanced at the end of the day. This way, you don't have transactions or payments hiding in the past, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to reconcile. Here's an example that I created. So up the top here, you can see that in the subclient account section, the overall balance is $15 outstanding. However, this doesn't match my balance value down the bottom here. And that is because there's probably a charge in the previous dates, so historical, that hasn't been reconciled correctly or hasn't receipted a payment. So because I have set up this scenario, what we can do and what we recommend doing is, if you see that there's a difference, we can go to custom, and I'm just going to select a date in the past so we can look at the entire cash account from the 1st of May until today's date and reload. And here it is bringing up all of those transactions. So normally if you have a really long list, I normally recommend going left to right. And when you see a 0, it means that that cash account has balanced at some point. So I would just keep going until I see zeros. Once I stop seeing zeros, that's when I can think something has happened here. We've not received a payment, or maybe we've got a payment in there and not a charge to correlate with it. So for example, this one's really easy. I've got this $15 charge in here, and it's not, there's no payment that I can see that is of the same value that should be reconciled. So you can double check. That was done on the 12th of June, which was yesterday. So you can check with the staff member. If we click on the charge itself, it will actually show me who generated that charge. So you do get a bit of an audit log within the charge itself. Just going to go backwards. So you can ask Newbook support what happened to that charge. And it was me that made the charge, or it was a change of mind. They actually didn't end up purchasing it, but I had already put it through the system. So in that scenario, we would tick our charge and we would simply void it because it was a change of mind. We didn't take payment for it. And always adding a void reason so that management can go ahead and see any voids. You can also amend privileges so that you can restrict certain users with a certain user profile to not have access to voiding if you didn't want them to use that function. But I've gone ahead and I have voided that particular item. If I scroll down, there's another setting if you ever want to see voided items. In the advanced option here, show voided items, when we select yes and reload the page, it will then show any voided items in the red color here. So it will show it was generated on the 12th of June, but it was also voided on the 13th. So we can see on your reports, if you use the earned revenue report, you'll be able to see that the charge would have been generated on the 12th. If you ran the report on the 13th, your void transaction will be there as well. Okay. Let's go ahead. I'm going to now go to our refunds. So we have Porky Pig over here and Speedy Gonzalez. I'll jump into Speedy Gonzalez as an example. So for our guests who want to cancel a booking, normally refunds are fairly easy. You can simply cancel the booking. Newbook will remove those charges. I can add a cancellation reason and select cancel. Newbook will void off those charges and show us the payment amount here to refund. When we click that refund button, we can then select how they paid. So when I click on credit card gateway, it's showing me the card that was used to pay, and I can simply select on that card and refund card through gateway and save. That's where it will bring up the refund receipt. That's an easy refund. If I go back to look at the client account, for example, everything should be green. So we can see a line for the payment here and a line for the refund here as well. If we go back to the view booking screen, we've got a zero balance, which is really good. Now, I want to show you another scenario that might be a little bit different. So Porky Pig, he would like to refund a payment, but he would like to actually change his payment type. So over here, we're not really canceling the booking because that booking is actually going ahead. If I click on Porky Pig client account here, he's maybe come up, and over here we can see he paid using a credit card gateway payment. So that's why we can see this long reference number here. So the scenario I will use is, we've accidentally, he doesn't want his credit card to be charged. He would actually like to pay cash. Now, what most people may do is they may tick and try to refund the payment like so. And they will see a $0 amount here. The reason for that is because my payment is paying off these charges, aka it is reconciled with those charges right now. It's fully using this payment. So therefore I can't refund anything because it is in use. So what we actually have to do in this scenario is we go into the payment and we need to unreconcile from these charges. So clicking edit payment, I can then untick the charges. So $50 is no longer paying these. And when I select save, we can then see the entire client account is not in green anymore. So this will allow me to go ahead and we can then select the payment now, and with selected, we can refund. You can only refund a payment. So just tick and refund. Now I've got that nice payment amount. It's showing the Visa ending in 111, which was the original credit card gateway payment that we used, and we can refund through the gateway and save. This is my refund receipt. If I go back, we've now got a payment line in green, and we've also got a refund line in green. And then I've got my two charges that we still need to pay. And it's as easy as selecting both of those charges. Let's pay them off, and we will use the cash that he's come up to reception with. and save. So looking at that client account, we've got a nice, neat client account here, and everything is still balanced and looking good. Alrighty. I won't keep you for too much longer. I just wanted to go over a couple of really good reports to use. So unallocated transactions report. This is mainly a cash report that we would use. So if you are cash accounting, we would recommend using this report. However, just to make sure that your accounts are reconciling correctly, you could run this at the end of every day to have a look and see any client accounts that aren't that don't have payments reconciling correctly. If you see a guest client account on your report, that is fine because they probably have a credit on file and they want to use that for a future stay. So therefore, that won't be reconciling with any charges at this point. However, I do have this booking test as an option, which I'll open in a new tab. And if I see here, I can actually see this entire client account is not reconciled. That is why it's in there. So you would use the same steps that I showed you before. You would go into the payment, edit the payment, click on the charges and save, and that's how you can reconcile the account. Now you can also use a couple of other reports. So we do have a client account creditors report. Client account creditors report is a great report to see anyone who is in credit to you up until a certain date. So we could run this on today's date. We could actually use our display options here to go advanced and limit to a client account type. So if you want to keep track of any guest client accounts with a credit on them, we can run the report and we can see there's my Lola Bunny guest account. So maybe you want to keep track of that. Maybe you can click in there and see how long that particular credit has been sitting there for. So you can see this payment came and was transferred from booking 83, and that was only done recently. So we can leave that on file. But once you start noticing that those credits are staying there for a couple of years or so, it gives you a chance to reach out to the guests and say, hey, we still got a credit on file. Why don't you come and stay and use your money, essentially. There is a client account debtors report. So client account debtors report, very similar to the creditors, but opposite. It's looking at debtors specifically. So anyone who is considered a debtor up until today's date, you can change this if you need to. But we can also use the advanced options, and maybe we want to only see those bookings that are in a departed status and cancelled. You can also use arrived if you'd like to, but just to make sure that all your charges are balanced for departed and cancelled bookings, we could run the report and we can have, I've got a lot here, but we can have a look and we can see all of those bookings that haven't been balanced. So what is happening with those charges? Why is it happening there? An important thing to note that if your account isn't reconciling properly, it will also show on this report. So making sure that when you jump into a booking that if this is at a zero balance, it means it's a reconciliation problem. So we haven't actually reconciled the account accordingly. So that's another reason why reconciling accounts is so important, is it can have an effect on your reports. So just making sure that they are up to date, and the more that you cross-check your data, the better it is, and the less hopefully outstanding balances you will see on your Newbook database. Awesome. Well, that's all we have time for today. We have gone a little bit over, but I hope you enjoyed the session. Again, please fill out the survey that will pop up after we end this session. Put in any feedback if there's anything that you'd really like to go over in the next webinar. Pop in your suggestions in your feedback there, and I will hopefully see you next time. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks so much. Bye.